Mr. Yogesh from iSense. He's just joined the group, so a quick round of applause for him. I think the need of the hour and what we saw as a theme, emerging trends in retail, and since morning we've heard a lot of positive things about retail and how retail is going to evolve over the next 5-10 years, FDI, non-FDI. So having said that, regional players as well as specialty retail form a huge, and I am not undermining the word huge here in terms of the mix that it provides not only to the customers but also to the tenants in the mall. So having said that, I'd like to leave this discussion open for whoever wants to take the lead and say, what is it that defines or differentiates specialty or regional players from what they have seen in the market vis-a-vis the modern trade, the other national and the international players? So I leave it open first. Anybody else wants to take that?
Okay, I think I'll come more from the consumer durables and the IT business, the CDIT space as you call it. And being a specialty category, I think in this specific category there are 4 real pointers which differentiate. CDIT retailers get noticed very fast in most markets. This also is, I think, driven largely by the fact that across electronic categories, the penetration levels are very low. Other than mobile phones, I think most categories are single-digit penetration levels at this point of time. There's a huge interest in that category from consumers. Second, I think, is the fact that the media coverage also has been one reason why retailers in the CDIT space have been noticed. Look at the amount of ATL spends. If you open a newspaper, whether it's Bombay, Bangalore, you'll invariably find the likes of Girias and Adishwars and Vijay Sales and the Chromas and the mobile stores of the world spending a lot of money on ATL. You also have television channels who actually have initiatives and programs which run on technology, for example, something like the Gadget Guru and Tech Buzz and so on and so forth. That's the second thing which I think brings about a differentiation in the marketplace. Third, obviously, and that applies to every specialty retailer, is the fact that they're category owners. So there's a huge dominance in the category. They bring subject matter, domain expertise in that category, and that's what differentiates them. Last, I think in the CDIT space, specifically, I would say that innovation and pace of doing business is something which differentiates them from anybody else at this point of time. I mean, the ability of a retailer to bring the latest technology, whether it's in products or services, hardware and software and so on and so forth, I think that's what really makes them stand apart. I'm sure there's nobody in this space at this point of time who is not excited about the next iPhone or the next iPad or the latest smartwatch or the latest PS4, for example. So the category by itself has an inherent tendency to create a lot of awareness, a lot of interest in the consumers. And that's, I think, the 4 reasons, in my opinion, why CDIT retailers stand a little differentiated in the marketplace at this point of time.
Anybody has a different view? Yeah?
more reassuring for you to take it on. So as a specialization, being from a local area is an advantage. That's what we feel.
Multifold increase in the number of stores, and I think the opportunity to continue to grow over the next 5 to 10 years is huge. All the international brands, bulk of the retail happens to standalone specialty stores, and I see a great opportunity for this segment.
So I guess that sums up in terms of saying yes, there is a great opportunity. What happens to the format of your stores? Each one of you, when I know each one of you individually to say that with confidence that your stores range from 500 square feet to 50,000 square feet. There is a huge operational cost in a small store vis-a-vis a big store, and sometimes in a small store it's even more unviable to break even than in a big store because then all the dynamics change. How do you handle that for a specialty retailer? Asim, you want to take that up?
What we have seen is that we believe that only the top 7-8 cities in India is where we can take our formats. We've tried with cities like Aurangabad and places like that, even touristic places like Goa and all that, and we find that that's not the kind of market that we should be in. Goa would have been a choice for anyone who's into handicrafts or gifting, but our experience was otherwise, and we continue to see the trend in the larger cities, as I said, the top 8 cities in India. Coming back to the size, again for us it's been a lot of experimentation. We've in the last year and a half looked at right sizing. Fortunately for us, when we signed the mall stores, they came up for renewal. And when the renewal came up, I think the mall and us both put together felt that certain stores of ours need to be right size. And a typical example was a store in Orbit, Washington, which was a little larger store that we took. Did well, but we still felt that we were not doing justice to the space that we had. So we just moved to space which is half the size, less than half, and we still managed to do 90% of the turnover that we did in the larger store. So what really happened is suddenly, and this happened December and Jan, and everyone that I'm meeting from the mall is talking about it as a success story. So I think taking this across and right sizing your store, and that is only after experience that you really realize which markets, what is the kind of size that you really need to be kind of having.
Well, in jewelry, it's very interesting to understand that when we talk about store size, our investment in terms of merchandise goes to 100,000 rupees per square foot. Okay, so if I do a 5,000 square foot store, I'm talking about 50 crore worth of investment in inventory itself. My store decor cost me roughly around 5,000 rupees per square foot. Okay, so if I have to do a 5,000 square feet store, I mean, we need to really be sure where we're putting our monies in. In fact, in Chile, that's, I think we took very right decisions in the early stages. Most of our stores are in malls, barring few in the smaller markets where we have taken high streets. They are not more than 450 square feet. You turn around your store or break even at the store level in roughly around 8 to 12 months time at a store level profitability. So from that perspective, if I look at it in terms of for jewelry, just to give an industry specific so that people have a idea of what we are talking about. The total size of jewelry market in India is roughly around 250,000 crores. Okay, which includes gold, silver, diamonds, the works. Out of that, 95 to 97% is unorganized. Okay, 2 to 3% is only organized, and we are the guys started way back in 1994 with an organized way of selling diamond jewelry with an MRP. Okay, so those were the days when I was on the other side of Jilly. I was at Shoppers, and we introduced Jilly. To convince a modern retailer to sell fine jewelry in a department store was a challenge. Being a specialty again, I mean, why would customer who also came to the store would also talk a different language, saying that, okay, what is the gold rate, what is the diamond rate, what is the labor you are charging, which is how the industry sells. Okay, my ASP in those days used to be 700 rupees. Okay, that is the ASP of the rupee that used to sell. Today, in a department store, the ASP is moved to 40,000 rupees. Okay, so consumers have started spending, consumers have started accepting the fact that, I can buy diamond jewelry from a department store. However, it became a challenge for us as a specialty retailer in 2008. Okay, gold markets crash, everybody stops expansion, and we as a specialty brand or a retailer, we are stuck with largely with department stores because there was no case study. How do you sell an MRP-based diamond jewelry? I mean, there's no science. I mean, there's no history to or a case study to tell you. So we restricted ourselves to department stores, and then in 2008, all the department stores decided not to expand. So how do we grow our business? That's when we started looking at putting up a large amount of standalone stores. All the real estate developers were in a tight spot, so we got very good rentals to move into the department stores, to the malls. We also started franchising, and that's how we entered these smaller markets. We opened stores in Jagadalpur. I don't know how many people know, but Jagadalpur is a small town in, it's in Chhattisgarh. Okay, we opened our franchise store in Chhattisgarh. Okay, so that's how, as a specialty retailer, we've been moving into different markets.
So I think he's actually spoken about the point that we want to make at the end. Customer acquisition for regional players, smaller big, specialty players, smaller big, is very difficult. There has to be a strategy to acquire this on an ongoing basis, otherwise you will cease to exist, because basically we know it's the survival of the fittest. So the first question I'd like to ask the table is that, what is it that we do in a specialty business to acquire customers? Secondly, is our strategy moving towards where the customers are going? So is mall part of your strategy? And then I will close it with the last question, which is about malls. So can we discuss on customer acquisition? I'd like to give Atul a chance as he's not spoken.
I just put the conversation around that. We are in a business where so I represent a very unique business wherein within one format we do two different business models. 2/3 of the business coming from the pharmacy, which is more or less a supply chain business wherein a demand is being generated by an ecosystem, which could be doctor, physician, reference or whatever. And the 1/3 business is where the business is all about non-pharma. So in an outlets where 2/3 of the business demand is already being generated by some ecosystem, the creativity, the innovation lies on the 1/3. And that's where I be looked upon as a specialty retailer. And I think it's very important for all specialty retailers to understand what is the niche that is grown. So for a pharmacy, apart from medicine, what we realized was wellness is something which is very, very close cousin to a medicine. And that's where the niche we try to do. We're talking about cosmetics, going to a pharmacy store, and there again we realize derma cosmetics is one thing where customer would blindly close his eyes and do it. So I think the more when we looked at increasing the productivity to make our business more viable, the opportunity that we saw was more on the non-pharma side. And I can talk about numerous examples on the product innovation that we did. One of them was like, we all knew that 6 crore people, 60 million people in this country are suffering from diabetes. I know eventually they will land up in a pharmacy. So what is that I can do on the preventive side, where I can address that opportunity also. And on the private label side, I introduced a product which is Karela jamun juice. I was not sure if when I take this product to South, whether people would understand the word Karela. It's a bitter gourd. And the dilemma which I was facing, that should I call it a bitter gourd juice or a Karela jamun juice? My 66% market is in South India, 3 states, and I decided to go with Karela jamun. And trust me, today that's the fastest selling private label of all the 300 SKUs that we do. So I think the the whole game plan is to understand that wish, that specialty retailer brings on the table and play on it. If I try to sell lotions and all those things, I think I'll lose out to the supermarkets, I'll lose out to the hypermarkets. I think that's the learning that we got from this specialty center.
Yeah, that's one part of the customer acquisition strategy via assortment and range. What is the other strategic move that you would make to keep the flow of customer coming in back again and again? And I'm not only talking loyalty programs, generic everyday customers so that you can. So Yogesh, Kinjal.
Question is very valid because customer acquisition in our business is getting tougher and tougher. Like-to-like growths are a big challenge. So if I grow by 2% like-to-like in a month, I'll be very happy saying that wow, the 2% like-to-like growth. In the industry, at this level where we sell books, music, movies, toys, stationery, our continuous focus is two things. Looking at increase in margin and reduction of cost. I think these two drivers are really helping me to deliver better numbers on the existing store basis.